That voice in your head telling you to have just one more slice of pizza, buy that thing you don't need, or scroll social media for another hour? It's slowly destroying your life without you even knowing it. What if I told you that the biggest threat to your success isn't your competition, your boss, or even bad luck? It's actually sitting right between your ears. Today, we're diving deep into something psychologists call the overindulgent mind. And trust me, once you understand how this invisible force controls your daily decisions, you'll never look at your impulses the same way again. Let me start with a story that might sound familiar. Jake was a 28-year-old software engineer who seemed to have it all figured out. Good job, nice apartment, decent savings, but every evening he'd find himself mindlessly ordering takeout instead of cooking the healthy meals he planned. Every weekend, he'd buy gadgets he'd use once and forget about. Every morning, he'd hit snooze 5 times instead of going to the gym like he promised himself. Jake's problem wasn't laziness or lack of willpower. He was dealing with what researchers call hedonic adaptation combined with impulse dysregulation. Sounds fancy, but it's actually pretty simple. His brain had become addicted to instant gratification, and every time he gave in, it made the next temptation even harder to resist. Here's what's really happening inside your head when you're being overindulgent. Your brain has 2 main systems fighting for control. System 1 is fast, emotional, and wants everything right now. System 2 is slower, logical, and thinks about long-term consequences. The problem is, we live in a world designed to hijack System 1. Think about it. Your phone buzzes with notifications every few minutes. Streaming services autoplay the next episode. Food companies spend millions making snacks that hit your brain's reward centers harder than a slot machine. Even shopping apps use the same psychological tricks as casinos to keep you buying. Dr. Anna Lemke from Stanford University studied this exact phenomenon. She found that constant exposure to high-reward, low-effort activities actually rewires our brains. It's like we're all walking around with a tolerance problem, but instead of drugs, we're tolerant to dopamine itself. The scary part? Most people have no idea this is happening. They think they're just making choices, but their choices are being made for them by algorithms, marketing teams, and their own overstimulated reward systems. Let's talk numbers for a second. The average person checks their phone 6 times per day. That's once every 10 minutes while awake. Each check triggers a small dopamine hit, training your brain to crave more stimulation. Research from the University of California found that it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully refocus after a distraction. So, if you're checking your phone every 10 minutes, you're literally never in a state of deep focus. But it gets worse. This constant stimulation doesn't just hurt your productivity, it rewires your brain's reward system, making normal activities feel boring and unrewarding. Reading a book feels slow, having a regular conversation feels dull. Even eating regular food can taste bland compared to the hyper-palatable processed stuff we're used to. Dr. Robert Sapolsky explains this perfectly in his research on behavioral conditioning. When we repeatedly choose instant gratification over delayed rewards, we're literally strengthening the neural pathways that make us more impulsive. It's like going to the gym, but for bad decisions. The food industry figured this out decades ago. They hire teams of food scientists to create what they call the bliss point. This is the perfect combination of sugar, salt, and fat that makes your brain light up like a Christmas tree. Once you hit that bliss point, regular healthy food tastes like cardboard. Social media companies use the same playbook. They call it persuasive design. Variable ratio reinforcement schedules, social validation loops, fear of missing out triggers, these aren't accidents. They're carefully crafted psychological weapons designed to keep you scrolling. Here's where it gets really dark. A study from Harvard Business School tracked 2,000 people for 5 years. They found that people who regularly gave in to impulse purchases, emotional eating, or mindless entertainment consumption showed decreased activity in their prefrontal cortex. That's the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, planning, and self-control. In other words, Being overindulgent literally makes you worse at not being overindulgent. It's a downward spiral that most people don't even realize they're in. But here's the thing that really gets me. We're not just talking about buying too much stuff or eating too much junk food. This overindulgent mindset seeps into every area of life. Relationships, career decisions, health choices, even how we think about ourselves. Take Maria, a marketing manager who couldn't understand why she kept dating the wrong guys. Every relationship started the same way. Intense chemistry, lots of excitement, but no real compatibility or shared values. She was essentially applying the same instant gratification mindset to dating that she used for everything else. She chose partners based on immediate emotional rewards rather than long-term compatibility, or considered David, who jumped from one get-rich-quick scheme to another. Cryptocurrency, dropshipping, day trading. He spent 3 years chasing fast money instead of building actual skills. His overindulgent mind couldn't handle the slow, steady work required for real success. The research on this is crystal clear. Dr. Walter Mischel's famous marshmallow experiment showed that kids who could delay gratification performed better on SATs, had lower rates of obesity, and were less likely to have substance abuse problems 30 years later. But here's what most people don't know about that study. The kids who succeeded didn't have more willpower. They had better strategies for managing their attention. They looked away from the marshmallow. They sang songs. They thought about other things. They understood intuitively that you can't fight temptation with pure willpower. You have to change your environment and redirect your focus. This is where most people get it wrong. They think the solution is to just try harder, more discipline, more willpower, more self-control. But willpower is like a muscle that gets tired. Studies show that people make worse decisions later in the day because their self-control gets depleted. The real solution is what psychologists call choice architecture. Instead of relying on willpower in the moment, you design your life so the right choices are easier and the wrong choices are harder. James Clear talks about this in his research on habit formation. He found that people who successfully changed their behavior didn't have more motivation. They had better systems. They made the good behaviors obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. And they made the bad behaviors invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. For example, if you want to stop mindlessly scrolling social media, don't rely on willpower. Delete the apps from your phone. Put your phone in another room when you're working. Use website blockers during focused work time. Make the bad choice harder to make. If you want to eat healthier, don't keep junk food in your house. Prep healthy meals on Sunday so they're easier to grab than takeout. Put fruits and vegetables at eye level in your fridge. Make the good choice the easy choice. But here's the deeper issue. The overindulgent mind isn't just about individual choices, it's about how we think about satisfaction itself. We've been conditioned to believe that more is always better, that faster is always preferable, that we deserve to have what we want when we want it. This mindset is making us miserable. Psychologists call it the hedonic treadmill. No matter what we get or achieve, we quickly return to our baseline level of happiness. The new car stops being exciting after a few weeks. The promotion stops feeling special after a few months. The relationship stops giving us butterflies after a few years. But instead of learning from this pattern, we just chase the next hit, the next purchase, the next experience, the next achievement. We're like hamsters on a wheel, running faster and faster, but never actually getting anywhere. The ancient philosophers understood this better than we do. The Stoics talked about voluntary discomfort. The Buddhists talked about non-attachment. They knew that constantly seeking pleasure and avoiding discomfort was a recipe for suffering. Modern neuroscience backs this up. Dr. Judson Brewer's research at Yale shows that the more we chase pleasurable experiences, the less pleasure we actually get from them. It's like we're building up a tolerance to our own happiness. The solution isn't to become a monk or give up all pleasures. It's to become more intentional about what we consume and how we consume it. To practice what researchers call savoring, instead of mindlessly scrolling through 50 videos, watch one video that actually interests you and pay full attention to it. Instead of eating while distracted, sit down and actually taste your food. This brings us to the climax of our story. Remember Jake, the software engineer from the beginning? He didn't fix his overindulgent mind by becoming a productivity robot. He fixed it by understanding how his brain actually worked and designing his life accordingly. He moved his phone charger to the kitchen, so he had to be intentional about checking it. He signed up for a meal delivery service to remove the decision fatigue around cooking. He found an accountability partner for his fitness goals. Most importantly, he started treating his attention like the valuable resource it actually is. Within 6 months, Jake lost 20 pounds, saved $3,000, got promoted at work, and started dating someone he actually had things in common with. Not because he suddenly developed superhuman willpower, but because he stopped fighting his brain and started working with it. The truth is, we're all living in the most stimulating environment in human history. Our brains evolved to seek immediate rewards because that helped our ancestors survive. But now, those same instincts are being exploited by companies that profit from our distraction and overconsumption. The good news? Once you understand how this works, you can't unsee it. You start noticing when apps are trying to manipulate you. You recognize when marketing is pushing your emotional buttons. You become aware of your own impulse patterns and can interrupt them before they derail you. This isn't about perfectionism or self-denial. It's about freedom. The freedom to make choices based on what you actually want for your life, not what your overstimulated brain is craving in the moment. Your future self is counting on the decisions you make today. Every time you choose delayed gratification over instant pleasure, you're literally rewiring your brain for success. Every time you practice focus over distraction, you're building the mental muscle that will serve you for the rest of your life. The overindulgent mind wants you to think that discipline is the enemy of happiness. But real happiness comes from living according to your values, not your impulses. It comes from building something meaningful, not consuming something momentarily pleasurable. So the next time that voice in your head tells you to have just one more slice, buy just one more thing, or scroll just one more minute, remember that you have a choice. You can feed the system that keeps you trapped, or you can starve it and build something better. The most successful people aren't the ones who never feel temptation. They're the ones who've learned to surf the wave instead of being crushed by it. They understand that the overindulgent mind is not their friend, and they've built systems to protect themselves from their own worst impulses. Your attention is your most valuable asset. Protect it like your life depends on it, because in many ways, it does. Click that next video to learn the exact system I use to beat decision fatigue and automate good choices.